Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NSFAS Accreditation 101 webinar. We are very excited to be here, and this is always a very exciting topic that I get so many questions on. So we decided today just to have a webinar to kind of answer some of the more frequent questions that I get. My name is Rita van Rooyen, and I will be your host today. And I am the CEO of a company called My Student House. We are a student accommodation management company, and we help new landlords get into the student accommodation space, or existing landlords that are tired of managing and dealing with all the student drama, and we'll help them to manage their portfolios and to grow into different regions if they want. But I don't want to talk too much about me today, because today we're also joined by industry expert and accommodation and accreditation expert, Jean-Claude Kapindi. And he will be answering a whole lot of these questions, because he's always on the forefront and in that, where changes are happening, and, when Parliament is out there, like yesterday being live, he's on top of all of that. So he's going to share all his knowledge about accreditation and so on with us. But I don't want to introduce him. He definitely can introduce himself, because he'll do a much better job at it than me. So Jean-Claude, welcome, and give us an introduction.
Thank you, Rita. I don't know about the expert part, but we do our best, I guess. So yes, I am Jean-Claude Kipinde. I am currently the CEO of a company called Red Rock Ventures. We are a consultancy in the property space and the social media space. I have 5 years experience now in the student accommodation space. In 2024, I served on the NSFAS TOS team. I was part of the Residents Owners Association up until this year, and I do consultancy across the country to some of the solution partners that are even handling the accrediting agent, accrediting agent distribution. I've been engaging with institutions right across the country, from Free State to Gauteng to Western Cape to the Eastern Cape. So yeah, that's a short background on who I am.
All right, awesome. And I know personally that obviously Jean-Claude has been involved and in both sides of the fence when it comes to accreditation. So being the person that says, okay, inspectors come out and inspect my place, but also now being on the other side and seeing the results of all the accreditations coming through, which obviously gives you a very unique perspective, I think. Being able to kind of see accreditation working from the inside and the outside. So we're really, really happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
the first the first thing I think that people need to understand is that there's still universities that are not on the NSFAS portal. Okay, and I want to set that scene, because I think there's a lot of confusion sometimes that, the university, who's paying? Is it to the university? Is it NSFAS? So the money always comes from NSFAS. It goes to the university, and then the university pays the landlord. Or in the case, which is what we want to discuss today, is where NSFAS pays directly. So it goes from NSFAS and it pays directly to the landlord. And to get that payment going, there's an accreditation process that needs to happen. So that some institutions are on this portal and some are not. Right. So now, Jean-Claude, the first question, I think, is that why are only some institutions on there? And who are they? Who are the ones that's on that portal? And how does that work? And is there a list of some sort, so that people know, if I want to have students from a certain institution, should I get NSFAS accreditation, or should I get university accreditation? Because obviously you don't want to go get NSFAS accreditation and then it's not really relevant for your specific institutional situation. So how do people decide whether they should get NSFAS accreditation or not?
Okay, so yeah, so I'll start off with the first point of the question as to why some are on and why some are not. So to start off, the NSFAS direct payment system was a pilot project And like any pilot project, you don't want to go full scale until you have an idea on how it works. So they started off with some universities and some TVET institutions, and then expanded that in 2024 and continued with those in 2025 as they picked up that there's still some nitty-gritties that need to be ironed out. And on the second part of your question on how to find out on who is part of the current project and who is not, currently what NSFAS has is if you go to their platform and the NSFAS website and you click that you want to register as an accommodation provider, they will actually give you the option to choose which area you are from. So if I choose that I'm in the Western Cape, it'll give you a drop down of all the institutions that are part of the project in the Western Cape. And when you choose that as your primary institution, that will then be your institution that you will service as the primary institution. So currently, NSFAS has made it easy for landlords to know or to get the notification on who these institutions are that are part of the current version of the project.
But now also, I mean, I know that there's different service providers, different portals, right? Eastern and Western Cape has a different one to Gauteng, has a different one to Free State, right?
Mm.
So how does that work? So how do people know which portal should they go on? Do they all work the same, or is there something that that people should kind of understand which portal to go on to?
So the nice thing that NSFAS has done via their website, the second part or the second process of selecting your institution, there's a landing page. It takes you directly to the portal. Now, I just want to expand on this different portal so that the viewers might understand on how this came about, that NSFAS has 4 different portals. So what NSFAS did was they decided to split the country into 4 sections or 4 regions. And each region was given to a what they call a solution partner to develop the NSFAS portal for that specific area or region. And each one developed it in their view, but still sticking to the NSFAS guideline on how it should look. And if I click the Western Cape, I'll just use Western Cape as a point of reference. It'll take me to the portal or the NSFAS portal version, the student accommodation version for that solution partner. If I click the Free State, it'll take me to the landing page. It'll take me to that version. If I click Gauteng, it will take me to the Gauteng version of the student accommodation portal. And the other one is, I believe, the KZN version and those areas.
Yeah, because I remember, you know, when we first started with all of this, and we are nationally, so we are currently in our business, we're using 3 of those portals, and they really work quite differently. And some of it is simpler, and then I know the Western and Eastern Cape one definitely has a lot more functionality, and so on, and you can see everything of your students, your payments, your you know, whether they've been onboarded, which is the loading of the students onto the portal. You know, so but the portals are quite different. So I think it's important that people just also understand that sometimes, you know, if we show something or we say it's on the portal, it doesn't mean that it's on every portal. Yeah, yeah, I don't know personally why they decided to do 4 solution partners and not just one system. I suppose they kind of didn't want to put the risk all onto one system. So yeah, I suppose it also makes sense from a NSFAS point of view like that, but it is quite a bit confusing. But I think from what you've said, they're trying to make it easy now. So the NSFAS website, is that just what, nasfas.gov.za, I would assume, and then you choose from there, and they will automatically route you to the right place.
Yes, yes. So they've made sure that all the landing pages are on their main NSFAS website.
Okay, all right, great. So that at least is quite good news. Right. So then I think the next question then is, okay, great. We know now, you know, if you want to know whether you have to be NSFAS accredited, you go check there on the website and check if the institution you want to do is listed there. If it's not listed there, I would then say go and talk to the financial aid office or the housing office at the institution itself and ask them what is their accreditation process, right? Because if it's a university and they still have to come out and inspect your property and do maybe their own accreditation process. But that is then different per institution. So we can't even start to discuss that today. But then, yeah, so if it's not on that list, just go and chat to the university itself. Okay, so now, great, we know we can do it, we should do it. Obviously the basics. So I always say to people, the basics of what is it that you should have when you want to get accredited. Guys, it's in the regulations, okay? There's national norms and standards. You can put that in student accommodation norms and standards on Google and you'll get a document that gives you that list. So I don't want to also today just talk about the obvious things, right? So there's obvious things in there, your room sizes, the furniture that you need to have in your kitchen, you know, your bedrooms, all of that. It's quite clear in that document on what it is that people need. So, but you know, even if we do have all of those items, there's still a checklist on the portal that or a tool of some sorts that these accreditation agents use, right? What are the things that you've seen that's not that obvious that people should really be aware of when they set up their properties, you know, amenities or layout or whatever? What are those basic things that's not that obvious that people should look out for when they maybe buy their property or when they set it up?
So I want to start by saying that the accreditation process is guided by the minimum norms and standards. Even the current version of the grading tool that's being used is also guided by the minimum norms and standards by NSFAS and the accrediting agents. And going back to just from a experience point of view, so a lot of the times what we find is what I've discovered in going through these accreditation processes in the past is once you've applied for accreditation, so this whole process, once you've applied for accreditation and you have set up your property according to the norms and standards, it's good practice, in my personal opinion, to be part of the accreditation process, and not just be part of it, but be heavily involved in the accreditation process. It just helps your case as the landlord, so that you don't have to go through appeals process of something that might have been missed or something that you might have misplaced, or if you had just an example, you forgot to put the kettle out. If you're heavily involved in the accreditation process with the accrediting agent, it's easier for you to then say, oh, actually the kettle's in the cupboard, or the kettle or the first aid box is actually underneath the table. When it's supposed to be visible, it gives you that leeway when you're heavily involved in the accreditation process itself.
Yeah, and I think also, so we talk about grading. So I also want to maybe touch on that a little bit. So accreditation, you know, is just the process to say, okay, great, you're allowed to have NSFAS students in there. But what determines the amount of money that you're going to get is linked to grading. So whenever we talk about grading and accreditation, just understand the difference there is that grading, you get an A, B, C. I don't know if they still have a D and E, but all of those and gradings, it depends now on whether you comply with each and every one of those things on the checklist that they have. And then from there, they will then give you an A, which means you get more money, a B, a C, and so on. And we'll talk about the finances around this a bit later on. But just to kind of understand the difference between accreditation and grading. Okay, great. So now and by the way, I've got on my website, resavanrooyen.com, I do have what I've done is I've taken that checklist and I've compiled it onto a spreadsheet, and you can get it on the website. And then you can literally just go through that and tick it off. It comes straight from the grading tool. And then also there's another tool as part of that will tell you, you can put in the square meters of your property or how many rooms you've got, and it'll tell you exactly you need X many microwaves, you need so many bathrooms, so many showers, so many toilets, and it does that calculation for you. So the tools are there. and it's I've put it there on my website if anybody would like to get it from there, just to kind of help them with through that process. I love, okay, you know, if you've been to any of my webinars and things, you'll know I love tools and checklists. Okay, I don't want to leave things to chance. Okay, great. So now people have put in, and they've done the basics and all of that. What are the key things that people can do? Because everybody wants to get an A grade, right? Because an A grade means that you can get for a single room, the new cap that we have is 5,200. But the actual amount paid out to the landlord for a single room on an A grade is 4,940 rands per month. Okay, for 10 months, obviously. And then a sharing room is 4,693. So now you know, and then a B grade, it goes down and so on. What are the, I don't know, the top 3 things that you would say people need to, you know, make sure, or what can they do to make sure they get an A grade? So you've given us, you know, some great advice for people to be heavily involved, and I must totally agree on that, right? Wherever, don't let an accreditation agent go by themselves, because they're just going to walk around and tick things off and so on. You must always be, and also don't have your cleaner there or your caretaker, because they might ask questions, and they do ask questions. Sometimes that those type of people won't be able to answer, you know, especially from an admin security point of view, which is very, very important on that checklist. So definitely be very involved. But what are the things you can do to get an A? Come on, we all want A's. What is it? Is it, do we, and I mean, not just in terms of, I know location is a big thing, right? So, but maybe some other things like that people can think about. Oh, are we frozen?
It looks like we are.
Okay. Okay, cool. So then maybe I'll give you guys so long while we wait for Jean-Claude to come on. Oh, there you go. Like he's back. Did you hear my question? Okay, so let me, while he's busy there with his technical issues, so it's things that we found that really help. So obviously it's the distance, but not just the distance from the university. It's also the distance maybe to a shuttle point. So if it's walking distance to a shuttle point, that will definitely get you more points on your transport solution. We've used for security to get more points on that. We've used, for instance, AI on security cameras, which gets monitored by AI, which is very, very secure, in the early warning system. That helps. We've done social events for students on, for instance, you know, a birthday bus or something that we can create a bit of a social life, or sports, or we involved with the university to play some sports with them. So those are some of the other things that does count, and also electricity savings or things like that. Actually, you also can get points for that. For instance, what is do you have a generator, but like backup power, solar, that sort of thing? You won't not get accredited, but it gives you more points for you to get to that A grade. Jean-Claude, it looks like you're back. Is there anything else that kind of jumps out at you that you've seen people do that can get them to that A grade? Looks like we're frozen again. Okay. So
Rita, maybe ask him just to exit and come back in again.
Okay, let me just send him a quick.
Sorry, guys, for the technical issues. Oh, he's done it by himself.
Oh, okay, cool.
So you can continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you know, I can talk forever. You guys will tell me to shut up eventually. So so definitely, you know, those are sort of the main things that I've seen, and we've done so many accreditations now. We have 61 buildings now across the country. So we've done multiple NSFAS and university accreditation, and I think that the main thing is just to have that checklist. And you want to score, and some of them are small, stupid things, right? That as long as you follow that checklist, you know, your chances of that is quite good to get a good grading. I think the one thing also is that the one thing that is a new thing that kind of started as well, I would say this year, is they put a lot of emphasis on wear and tear, okay, which is not something that you will see in the norms and standards, but they will take into consideration like the condition of your bed, which is good, right? But the only challenge is that if there's any sign of wear and tear, like even if you have a fantastic quality mattress for after 1 year, it's still perfect for somebody to sleep on. But after that 1 year, it will have signs of somebody slept in on this mattress, isn't it? And then they will actually mark you down, and you won't for quality, or not quality, what condition, you can't score full points, because you can only get full points if it's brand new. So it really makes it very, very difficult to kind of score all of the top points in those categories. So if you then miss one thing on the checklist in anything else, it kind of pushes you immediately into that B category. So I've only seen A's right now, where it's like a brand new building that somebody built, new build, new furniture, new everything. They can still, I've only recently anyway seen those ones come through as an A. Jean-Claude, are you back with us again?
I hope my audio is fine now. Can you hear me?
Yes. It is. So is there anything, I've said a lot now about how to get to an A, but is there anything specifically that you've seen that's not that obvious for people to try and get an A on the actual grading?
So what I've actually picked up is, and I keep hopping back to the current version of the NSFAS website and the version of the solution partners. And I will say that I've picked it up mainly with the solution partner in the Western Cape and Eastern Cape. When you log onto their version of the platform, under the how it works, they actually have inspection guidelines that you can use. And in these inspection guidelines, what I've picked up is there is the minimum norms and standards, which is the minimum to get accredited. And then on top of that, they have the extras, and how it's displayed to the landlord is they will, in your inspection report that they will give you, and I think this is where some work needs to be done, because you get it after you've gone through accreditation. They'll tell you you've met all the minimum norms and standards to get accredited, but there's these extras that then push your grading from the C, which is the entry level, or E or D, and these extras that push your grading upwards. So it would be your, like you mentioned, your recreational area where you have the TV, and then your TV has access to internet where the guys can watch Netflix, or you have your study room, but your study room has X, Y, and Z extras. But I think what helps the landlords a lot is that there is a place where you can go to find these extras that or these inspection reports, or even if you're upgrading, you have a report that you can work on your property to get from whether it's C to D, C to A, or C to B. So I think that's the one thing that I feel has been in this whole process has been underlooked.
Oh, that's actually, that's very, very cool. Yeah. I also, I mean, until right now, I didn't even know about that. So, so thank you for sharing that. Then I think also, so great. So now somebody, so, you know, once you've submitted, and there's a whole lot of documents you have to submit for the property itself, for the landlord, if you're a business or personal individual. There's things that you submit, and once you've submitted that, you make a payment. I'm not going to talk too much about that because it's very, very standard, and the portal is quite clear on what you need to submit, like your zoning plans, how many rooms you have, and basic info like that. So, but the second thing is that, okay, great. So now the person came, they inspected. What happens then? Because they then have to put whatever they saw onto the portal, and then what? And how long does it take? Because in my opinion, it's been, sometimes it's quick. It's a week or a 2-week process from paying until you get your offer letter, which is the final step. But sometimes, I've had it in Bloemfontein, for instance. I've had it where it took a whole year. So, I mean, what is sort of the average, or what are the things that could delay that offer letter to come out? I mean, how long is it supposed to take, and what can you do if it gets delayed?
So before I get into that, I just want to differentiate between the roles of everyone in this whole process. So in the accreditation process, there are 3 key players. It's it's NSFAS themselves. They do the final sign-offs. It's the solution partners platform, not them themselves, but the platform that they built, because all of this is facilitated through the platform. And then it's the accrediting agents. They are the ones that are appointed to come out to accredit the properties. Now, the first step is when they come out to accredit, they give a provisional grading or proposed grading that then gets looked at by NSFAS, and you can sort of keep track of where, at which stage in the accreditations process your property is via the platform. This gets sent to NSFAS, and NSFAS does the final sign-off. So just an example, if I, as the accrediting agent, am giving Rita's property an A grade, with this report, it gets sent to NSFAS. NSFAS will look at it. Based on the report, does the property deserve an A grade? Yes or no? In some cases, there is the willingness from NSFAS to want to work with the landlord. So they're not just going to say, you know what, you didn't meet X, Y, and Z. I'm just going to cancel this property, and that's the end of it. In some cases, they will actually say, oh no, your property, based on the report, you've put in 2 beds in a space where there's supposed to be 1 bed. So we can't go ahead and sign off. You either need to rectify this, and if you don't want to, then that's the end of the road. But if you can rectify this area, then we can proceed. And that is in most cases why there are delays in the outcome, in the eventual outcome. You'll see that hopping onto the Bloemfontein issue that took a year. I can't really speak on what happened in that case. I'm just speaking from my experience. In a lot of cases, that it is things that need to be fixed, and that is where I said there are 3 key players in this whole process. Where errors need to be fixed, I do know that a lot of the solution partners engage with the landlords to say, this is where we stuck at this process. Based on what NSFAS has mentioned, you need to fix X, Y, and Z. And when you send us the evidence, we then submit back to NSFAS, and NSFAS will then give the final sign off. So it could be that you were stuck in that particular space.
And I think it is very important what you say, that people need to understand the differences of those role players, because the issue can come in with accreditation agents. For instance, we've had delays in that because there might not be any accreditation agents that were appointed where their offices are, for instance, in Graafrenet. And now they have to have enough. They can't send somebody now all the way from Cape Town or Joburg or wherever, fly out, drive all the way there to go and accredit 10 beds, right? It doesn't, so sometimes then they have to wait for more people to apply before they will then do a trip and a bulk inspection and that sort of thing. So there's definitely delays like that. So I definitely want to recommend to people to, if you want to get students for next year, then start early. Start submitting your accreditation as early as November, latest 1 December. Get your accreditation submitted and paid for you to get accredited in time for the next year. And I think also the other important thing is that what you said is that, you know, NSFAS wants to work with you. They need the beds, guys. They need it. They don't want to not accredit you. They would rather get you accredited and compliant, because obviously they can't just put anybody into, students into any property that where they're not going to be able to pass because of the conditions. But they would rather tell you what's wrong and give you a chance to fix it rather than just reject you and say, sorry, you can't. And that has been my overall experience, is that as you know, as long as we work together and we give them a decent property, you know, the chances of you not getting accredited at all is very, very low. I've never experienced or heard about anybody that didn't get accredited after they've gone and asked for accreditation. The grading might just be lower, but the accreditation has always come through. All right, cool. I think then let's talk a little bit of legal, right? So I think, you know, if people, they can't really bypass any legal things anymore, because how it works in what I've seen is that a student will apply on the portal at your property. You can then accept the student. So the moment you accept the student, you've confirmed and you said, okay, great, I have the space, I'm happy with you as a student, and I'm accepting you. Then after that, the universities must also give their registration data. And I think as soon as that has come through, or at what point is this automatic rental agreement, because there is a rental agreement that's then automatically created on the portal, right? So at what point is this thing created? Is it after the student has applied, you accepted, and the registration data has come through? Or at what point does that document get created?
So to dive into that answer, the first thing that's very important to note is that when you go through your accreditation process and NSFAS signs off on your property and they say, here is your offer letter, that is them offering you to say, we've accredited your property at the A grade. This is what we're offering you at the A grade, the value. And when you sign off on your side, that is the agreement between yourself and NSFAS. And that offer letter or that accreditation sits for 3 years based on, you'll be able to access that on the portal, it'll tell you. And then there's a lease agreement in the documentation that's provided to you via your portal. And that lease agreement will give you the ins and outs between yourself and NSFAS. And that's there for the duration of your accreditation. Then there's the 10-month agreements that are between the landlord with NSFAS as the head lease and the student. That is then created once the student onboards. During the onboarding process, that lease is created and NSFAS pays against that lease between the landlord and the student.
Okay, cool. So I think also, you know, that first step, when you submit your property for accreditation, you are literally agreeing to certain terms and conditions, and that is on the portal website. So if you go right to the bottom, you'll see at the bottom it says student terms and conditions, and it says landlord terms and conditions. So go onto the portal when you want to go and get accredited, and just read through that so that you can see what are you signing yourself up for. And it's not like, you know, a cell phone contract that, you know, we just never read because it's so long. This is important because it will come back later on, because whatever's in those terms and conditions are then basically transferred or put into your lease agreement that is there with the student, you know, that gets generated a bit later down the process. And then also there's in the lease agreement itself, and I have done a video where I sat with an attorney, and we went through it, and we went almost like paragraph by paragraph through that agreement, the terms and conditions and the student lease, right? So there's two different videos for that, where we kind of unpacked it so that people can just understand. For instance, you're not allowed to charge deposits. You're not allowed to you just evict someone. There's certain things that you have to do when a student leaves the property, or when they leave the property. What you can hold them liable for rent or not, you know. So all of those things are in that terms and conditions and in that lease agreement. So I think it is important for people to just understand. And also, if you're not sure, you know, take it to your attorney and just get them to explain the full details of that, so that you know you don't, because they can, if you're busy operating against that lease agreement, they can go and say, listen, we're revoking your accreditation, and then you're not going to get paid, right? So it's very important that you try and well, that you have to understand what the actual contract is that you're signing with the student, and the terms and conditions for using that portal and getting the accreditation. Okay, then I think the next step is around financials, right? It's all about the money. So I already mentioned the grading rates and what you'll get for that. But then there's obviously different things that, so to get accredited, should you get accredited from a financial point of view or not, you need to do your numbers, right? So there's furniture that you have to get, and then there's obviously the actual accreditation amount that you need to pay for. How much is it these days? Because we haven't submitted anything yet for this year. Have they adjusted the amounts that you have to pay per bed to get accredited, or what is that, and how does that work? We start with
Yeah,
that.
so I'll start on what it is. So that amount that you pay per bed to get accredited is that money gets paid to the accrediting agents. As I mentioned earlier, that there is 3 key role players. These are the guys that amount goes to them. It gets paid to them to come out to your property and do the inspection and submit the report. The amount decreases the more beds you have. So the amounts haven't changed yet. Or haven't changed at all. So if you are property 1 to 20 beds, it's 200 Rand per bed. 21 to 50 beds, it's 150 Rand per bed. 51 to 100 beds, that's 125. And then anything 100 beds and up, it's 100 Rand per bed.
Yeah, that can still, I mean, if you have a 500 or 1,000 students, I mean, that is actually quite a big bill. And I think people have definitely been upset about that, because in the past, when the university accredits you, there's kind of a cap. And in my experience, like in Potch, that cap is like 10,000 Rand. So, you know, if you now all of a sudden have 500 students and you're paying 100 per student, you know, it's quite expensive to get this. But then obviously, I think also that with if you can get to an A or a B grade, sometimes that is in any case more than what you would have gotten from the university, because they also don't pay the full caps necessarily, you know, full cap meaning the 52,000 a year. They like at CPT right now, we're getting 4,387, you know. So whereas for an A grade single room, you're going to get on the NSFAS accreditation on that portal, you'll get 4,940, and that's a huge difference. That's like almost what, 600 Rands difference per month, which is 6,000 Rands for the year. And if you have 50 students, that's a lot of money, you know. So it is then worthwhile rather paying a little bit more for the accreditation when you know that your rental in a month is actually gonna be more if you get paid directly by NSFAS. So, but that's just if you get a C grade, then you know it's probably not worth it. Then you might as well go through the university payments. So there's that sort of nuances to this that you just need to be aware of. And then, of course, I think I'll chat a little bit about the furniture setup and so on. So I know that obviously prices of things go up a lot, but if you, and I'm not talking about flats, because I think if you have a flat with 3 students in it, the amount will definitely be different. But if you have a normal, like a commune with 15, 20 students in it, then you can roughly work on all the furniture that you need, your bed, desk, chairs, lounge, kitchen, everything. I work on, when I do my budget, a rough estimate, I'll work on about 8,500 rands per person that you're going to need to spend on your initial setup. And then that also includes security things, right? Like your cameras and installation and network access points, all of that. So it is quite comprehensive. If and you should be okay if you budget for that roughly when you go through this accreditation process. Jean-Claude, talk to us about other hidden fees and things that on people, you know, people just oh, the cap went up, it's now 52,000 this year. Last year it was 50,000. So, but what are that's not what you get paid at the end of the day. So what are these other hidden fees that people should be aware of?
So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't directly describe it as hidden fees
It is
because it's out in
okay.
the
For
public.
me, it is. But you have to
So
be politically correct, so it's fine.
yeah, yes, publicly the cap is at 52,000. That is correct, but via the direct payment system, it is a bit lower than that. So when you go onto the NSFAS portal or the student accommodation portal, and there's a section where you actually check for the rates. So you're able to download the rates, and it's 5% less than the actual public fees that were announced. So where they say 52,000 in a single room on the NSFAS portal before, I think every person should do the due diligence before they dive into student accommodation to go find out what am I getting paid via the portal. You can, and the nice thing about the portal, you can register onto the portal, do your due diligence, and then upload your properties. So you have access to all these materials and videos on how it works before actually uploading the property. And yes, so it is the current rates via the NSFAS portal are it's a single room on an A grade in a metro area. I think that's another thing we need to
Yeah,
touch on
that's the
that.
other thing we didn't talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, so some areas are demarcated as metro, others are demarcated as non-metro. So it's very important that you also have an idea when you are doing your due diligence to know which one is a metro, which one is a non-metro. Because in a grade A in a metro, the single room is 4,940, whereas a grade A in a non-metro is 4,050. And then the sharing room in a metro is 4,693, whereas in a non-metro is 3,884. And then, but you can access this via the portal. There is a detailed breakdown with the description of what a single room is and what it should be, the sizes and what a sharing room is and what the sizes should be. And additionally, what the NSFAS direct system has brought in, that I think from my side, it was there at some institutions, but then was removed, was the 3 sharing rooms, where if a room is big enough, you can actually fit 3 students in there. They will accredit that, and at the rates of a room, at the rates of a sharing room, they classify it as sharing room, whether it's 2 or 3. But as long as it meets the standard of, I think it's 19 square meters, and then also that there is some sort of privacy in there, and it does comply. So yeah, I think with the due diligence part on the NSFAS portal or on the housing student accommodation portal, it's very important that all landlords do go through those documentations.
Okay, cool. I think we want to give I've seen a lot of questions popping in, so I do want to spend a bit of time on that. So I think the last thing that I think we want to cover as part of the formal topics is around, you know, okay, great. So now I've submitted something and I'm waiting and waiting and I'm not getting a response. Or I've got an offer letter, I'm not happy with it. Or maybe I'm struggling, I don't know how to submit certain documents or whatever. who do people contact? Is there somebody officially on the portal or at NSFAS, or do they contact you at Red Rock? You know, I'm opening up the door here for a bit of sales for you. But obviously there are standard people, but if you still don't get joy from them, I mean, where do you go from there?
So, well, and I can only speak on experience and in the areas that I've operated in, and I keep hopping back to the Western Cape and Eastern Cape. But there's a ticketing system that they've created where you can actually log a ticket on the platform itself, and then the support team will then be able to engage with you on your ticket, whether they need to call you or take you through that. I know the NSFAS platforms do also have the how it works. You can go through the how it works, or you can just contact the solution partners or the guys that are doing it on behalf of NSFAS directly, their support teams, and they can take you through that. Alternatively, you can just contact Rita. I see My Student House does our management company, and they can also do it on your behalf. But there's a lot of help out there that you can get to help you on board onto this process. But like I mentioned, the number one is that on the platforms there is this help, and there is the ticketing that you can use, or just directly contact the support numbers.
Right, awesome, great. I think I'm just checking to see what questions we got, so that's always interesting. Oh, okay, this is a good one. So Andrew is asking, he's saying, as a landlord, what advice would you give for someone abroad? I'm working and living in the UK. So that is a good one. So I think number one, you need somebody on the ground, okay? Definitely somebody that can, because remember, so from an accreditation point of view, you can do the submissions and all of that you can kind of do remotely, but you're going to need photos of every single room. There's a whole lot of things like that. So you will need somebody physically at the property that can get you all of that information, and somebody that's there when the inspectors come out, right, that can answer the questions in the right kind of way. And then, of course, later on, and this is obviously where I am going to pitch My Student House. We do have, you need to be there for when students cause trouble and you have to implement disciplinary action. It really, we always have people that either live on the property or very close by that can go in and solve situations and parties and break it up and whatever else. I mean, you can see it on a camera, but if you can't get to them to break up that party and confiscate the music, then you know it can become problematic. But other than that, yeah, I wanted to say, other than that, Jean-Claude, there's no reason why somebody can't do it from abroad, right?
Yes, I just want to add, I think, yes, there's definitely no reason that someone can't do it from abroad. What I will add is that and not just anyone from abroad, but also locally, if you're getting into the space, it's very important that, number one, you identify the operations that you're going to do, the entire operations, understanding what comes with going into student accommodation. And then you split with what part of the operations do you want to keep that you as the owner, you as the investor is going to handle. I know most of the guys just want to handle the financial side and that's it. So splitting it on, okay, what part is it compliance? What part is can I do from abroad? What part can I do from afar without having to get my hands dirty, so to say? And then what part can I hand off to someone who's going to manage on my behalf? So it's very important that planning is done first as part of your due diligence, and then diving into it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, how much time do you have to spend? And there's always a trade-off between, you know, how much do you pay for the service versus doing it yourself. So yeah, so you first of all need to decide how dirty do you want your hands to get, you know, because you can do it all yourself. You can. It's just, you know, I created a whole team to do it for me because I hate fighting with students. I want to be the good person. I don't like playing the bad cop, okay? So that was my decision there. Bonga is asking, has grading been in place since inception or was it introduced later on? Because, you know, he's always been under the impression that it's a fixed amount per student. So I think, so as far as I know, the grading thing kind of came out when this whole portal was introduced. I wasn't really involved with NSFAS accreditations before this pilot project. But did that change or was it done like that from the beginning?
So yeah, it's always been like that. I think even if on an institutional level, the universities have always had a grading, some form of grading system or some form of system to differentiate the properties that were in a better state compared to those that were not. So it might not have come to light as it is right now, but I think right now it's where a lot of people have been more involved in the student accommodation space beyond just housing the students and getting payments, but actually understanding all the nitty-gritties that have been attached now to student accommodation.
Yeah. All right. And then Ruben is saying, what's the advice to anyone wanting to convert a heritage home into a student commune? How can one sell smoothly in terms of processes? I think for that, there might not be a smooth process that I'm aware of anyway. But I think, you know, always when you look at a heritage property, there's, and I'm talking about Cape Town. I don't know how strict the regions are, but in Cape Town, you know, it depends on sort of I don't know if they call it a different level of heritage, but some properties, it's kind of, you just need to protect the facade of the building, the front, and then at the back, you can do what you want, because they just want the front of the building to be preserved. In other types of heritage properties, they even want you to leave the original flooring and they want all kinds of things to not be changed, and you can't break a wall and put in an extra bathroom and so on. So, but I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you, and I think the best thing for a heritage property is to work with a town planner or an architect that has specific experience with heritage properties in that place where you are, whether it's in Cape Town or PE or wherever else. Work with a specialist rather in that space that can advise you whether it's even, you know, whether you should even attempt it or not. And they'll have the kind of view of whether they've been successful with this sort of thing before or not. So that's about the only advice on that side that I can give you from my side. And then Bonga's asking again, do you facilitate the accreditation process on behalf of landlords? So the answer is yes. It obviously depends on the area and the region and so on. So from a My Student House point of side, yes, we can help you in all the regions that we are. Jean-Claude, from a Red Rock point of view, because, you know, we only kind of fixed into specific regions, but I'm sure you guys are able to travel and assist people with this, or is that not something that you offer?
So so in our current position or in our current capacity, it's not something that we can directly offer, or let me say outside of it's not something we can directly offer because number one, we are, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are technically also consulting with the solution partners. So we cannot actually charge any landlord for any consulting or anything like that. So if you're coming to us and you're saying, look, I actually just want advice or consulting, we do that through the solution partner. So there's no extra charge or anything like that. Our lines open always, and we do it through the Proficia IT. So if you're saying, look, actually we just want to understand the project, we just want to do this, that's what we can do. In terms of facilitating the actual accreditation process, no. The direct answer is no. If you still want any more advice on that, I would recommend engaging with the management company if you want them to facilitate that, or yourself just getting clued up on it. But the answer is no.
Okay, but you can chat to me.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem. Okay, cool. And then once accreditation is granted, how long does the accreditation last for?
So that is 3 years. That's it's valid for 3 years.
Yeah, and I think also just important for people to understand is that they can come and inspect your property, especially if students complain a lot. They will come and inspect the property in between in those 3 years, and then you know they might then revoke the accreditation. I've never had it where they came out to do a subsequent inspection, but just be aware that they might actually do that. Dr. Sibikazi was saying, in general, how many students can occupy a room?
Well, one room, the max, depending on the square meterage, is 3, and that room would have to be 19 square meters. Anything below that would have to be 2 students, and anything below 14 square meters would have to be 1 student.
Yeah, I think also, you know, yes, in some areas, 3 students work fine. So it's the question there is also twofold. It's that, number one, legally, according to accreditation, can you do it? Yes, you can. But will the students stay like that? And in my experience, sometimes we do get it. It depends on how, you know, how big the demand is in the area. But in general, we've had to change 3 beds back to 2 beds again, right? Because you kind of, you full bed 1, you full bed 2, and then to full bed 3 is, you can't fill it. Or maybe, you know, nobody wants to move into that room because they know I could potentially get 2 roommates, and then you sit with an empty room. We had a case like that in Bloemfontein where we just sorry, that 3, we tried all kinds of fancy tricks. It didn't work. We couldn't fill it, even though according to accreditation, the room was bigger than 19 squares, and we were supposed to get 3, and we couldn't. But there's always a trade-off, right? So if you have 3 beds, you could charge it as a private for private students, right? But then your income most likely will be lower per student anyway. So yeah, there's just little bits like that also to remember. And then I think we've got 3 more minutes, so I'll do these 2 questions and then that's it for today. Mark is saying, let's say a room is 6 square meters, plus it has an ensuite of 2. Does that room count as 6 or 8 square meters? And his understanding is a single room must be 7. So does that room qualify? So I'll answer the second part, and John Claude can answer the first one because that's more difficult. I'll give him the difficult questions. It's 8 squares. For a single room, it's 8 square meters. And if it's, what we found is that they mark us as non-compliant if it's less than 8. And then, you know, you can't, if your room sizes aren't right, that's the quickest way to not get an A grade. You can still be accredited, but it won't be at an A grade. I have rooms that are just below 7 that got accredited, but you know, we can't get an A grade on those ones. So it's definitely 8. And then, yeah, I've also had questions about the 6 square meters and then an ensuite. Does that ensuite count towards the space for the room, or does that not count if towards your room space? Do you know? I mean, is there a specific thing about that, or gray area?
So in the past, there was a classification for ensuite. There used to be the single room, and then single ensuite, and then it was sharing room, sharing ensuite. And I think that's where they would sort of calculate that. There is so they do measure end to end in the rooms, and then the actual living space, and if if it works for a student to live there. It is a tricky question. So I think the accrediting agent would be the best one to answer that. But from my experience, there is a end-to-end calculation, so it would also depend on how the room is structured and the living space that's available.
Yeah, I must say that from my side as well, we've had multiple scenarios like that, and some accreditation agents will include it, some won't. Even a cupboard, so if you have a cupboard that's wall to wall, and that cupboard actually takes up 1.5 square meters, right? And it's not a loose standing one, so they can't measure from the wall at the back of the cupboard. And they measure from the door of the cupboard to the wall. Then the room is too small. But if you include the cupboard space, the room is actually the right size. And even that as well. So my argument has always been, but you have to measure from the inside of the cupboard, because if the cupboard wasn't there, it would comply. And then I just have a loose standing one and it would still comply. So why must I be penalized now because that cupboard is taking up space, which is actually part of the furniture? So even that is a bit of a gray area. So it depends on that's again a very good example of why you should be there to talk to the accreditation agent and kind of explain some of this situation, you know. Yeah, because that is kind of up to their discretion at this point in time. I'm hoping that NSFAS will tie that down and give us clear guidelines in the future. But for now, it's a little bit of a gray area, I would say. Sure, guys, I think we went through Bonga. Sorry, Bonga was the last one that said, are payments made? How often are payments made? Per month or biannually? He was told payments are strictly made biannually. So I think that is where the confusion comes in, is that, you know, universities pay whichever way they want. So I know UWC, we get paid biannually, and that's it. But in this instance, on the NSFAS portal, Jean-Claude, in your experience, when is the first payment? Because I think that's the other important thing. When is the first payment that gets made, and how often do they make payments?
Okay, so I think I just want to give everyone a background, because everyone might start asking why at that stage of the year. So the first payment, when it's meant to be made around March, April in that month. This year it was made in April. The first payment was made in April. And there's processes that lead up to the first payment being made. The first process is the students need to obviously apply. When registration opens, they need to register. That registration data needs to be sent off to NSFAS, and there's an invoicing period that also happens, and all of that gets done within the space of 2-3 months, and that's why the payments are made then. So that's the first payment. Now, the first payment is intended to cover February, March, April, and May. So what NSFAS did, or what the direct payment system from NSFAS has done, is that their aim was to cover the next month in the previous month. So if they're paying in June, the aim is to cover July. The payment in June is actually for July. The June payment is made in May, and the May payment is made in April. So that first payment that you get in April covers the first 4 months, and then the payment that you receive in May then is to cover the month of June and so on.
Yeah, so basically, as soon as you get your first one, after that, it's monthly until.
Monthly.
Jean-Claude, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope that everybody understands a lot more about accreditation now. I don't think we've ever had a webinar or anything like that where we go into this much detail. So I hope everybody has learned a lot, and it makes it easier for you to be compliant and get your properties all sorted. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you on the next one.